Alright, this video is going to go over the components of the vSphere environment and what they look like in the real world. I put that in air quotes because I'm running everything in VMware Workstation right now. So I downloaded the ESXi ISO, created a couple hypervisors in Workstation, and then I got the vCenter server deployment files and deployed that on one of those ESXi servers. So I can show you what everything's going to look like. So what we're looking at right here is the hypervisor console. This is the DCUI, as they call it, Direct Console User Interface, I believe it stands for. And this is what you see if you install this on a piece of hardware and you're standing there in front of the monitor. You can log into this interface by hitting F2, and logging in with the password you set. And then once you get in, you have limited ability to change certain things. Most likely what you're going to do in this interface is when you install, you're going to set the network information. And if you need to go in and change the network information, you'll do that in this interface if you don't have any other kind of connectivity. And that's really about all I ever do in here. Make sure the network's up. If I lose connectivity, I can go in here and try to troubleshoot, but pretty much not a lot happens in here. So that's what that looks like. One other thing you can do, if you hit F12, you can reboot it. So if for some reason you need to reboot it from the console, you can do that. It's going to ask you if you want to shut down any running VMs. If you have VMs running on there, you probably want to reconsider what you need to do before you shut them down. You probably should shut them down first and then restart the host. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff you can do in there. So once you have it installed and on the network, then you can connect to each individual ESXi server using the HTML host client, they call it. So if you go to the IP address of that hypervisor, it opens this web interface, and then from within here you can manage the host. You can look at the host settings, manage things related to the host, change some stuff in here, if you desire. Look at the CPU usage. Let me try to make my window bigger. Look at the CPU usage. Look at the memory usage with the drop down, network usage, disk usage, and you can manage the virtual machines that are running on this particular hypervisor. I have our WordPress instance running. If you click in the console, you can do console things like you're directly connected to it. So you can manage the storage configuration for this ESXi host, and you can add and manage networking for this ESXi host. So that's the host client, the HTML5 client they call it sometimes, the web client you might hear it called. That lets you connect to one individual ESXi host. So I have two ESXi hosts. So this one's 172.17.99.190. This one's 172.17.99.189. So I'm going to log into it. And so this is a state where I have two independent hosts. I have virtual machines running on both of them, but there's no real easy way for me to move those virtual machines around between those hosts. If I wanted this virtual machine to run on other hosts, currently this VM lives on the storage that resides in this ESXi host. So I would need to pretty much shut it down and move everything, the files over to the other host and then turn it back on. So those are things you can do if you need to relocate the host. But that's not you need to relocate the VM to the other host. But that's not something you're probably going to want to be doing with any regularity in the real world. If you remember from our previous discussions, we need shared storage to make this stuff useful. Right now I haven't set up my lab shared storage yet, so once you have shared storage, it becomes a little easier to move the VMs around, because you don't have to move the disk, you just move where it's running, and it's a little more feasible to do that between two ESXi hosts. But the power of the ESXi vSphere environment is the vCenter server. So this is the vCenter server environment. As I mentioned, I installed vCenter server on one of my ESXi hosts, and now when I connect in to manage, I get the vCenter server management. I have my 2 hosts added in there. You see I have the VM running on the host. So the power of vCenter server is now at this point, I still have these 2 independent hosts with their independent VMs running. They're not really tied together. I can't really do anything cool. But within vCenter server, I can create a cluster, and then I can add these ESXi hosts to my cluster, and then I can do cool stuff. Like once I have everything in the cluster, I can do things like migrate, which will let me move my VM while it's running from one host to the other. I can enable some of the advanced advanced settings like high availability or DRS, so that I get the most efficient use and availability out of this vSphere environment. So to summarize, if you install individual ESXi hosts and you want to manage them directly and individually, you can do that with the web host client. Everything's independent. If you get vSphere, you can add the hosts and manage them, but the power comes in when you add them to a data center. So that's that.